And we begin with citizen comments.
I would just like to acknowledge a couple of guests here that I haven't seen before your meeting. I'm proud to have them here. Sister Fleming is one of the candidates running for Ninth Ward Alderman and one of our citizens on the street. And I don't know if you feel comfortable saying hello, but you're welcome to if you'd like. This is our time for public comment.
Thanks for joining.
Whose camera is that? Is that Dan's camera up there?
That is, it's Facebook Live for the meeting,
I
right?
just asked if it's your camera.
Yeah. It's actually a phone, but it's got a
It's a
camera.
camera.
So is the meeting being streamed live to your Facebook page
Right.
for your benefit?
Actually, for our constituents, but it's on the agenda. We could wait and talk about
It
that
is for
then.
your
I think
benefit.
it's just good to know that the audience members know that you're streaming the meeting live on Facebook. Because some members of the audience in the past have requested you don't do that.
Folks, it is
It's
a
on the
time
agenda
for,
later, so call
it is a
it.
time for
It's just a
citizen
matter
comments.
of public information for people that are here for the first time.
And I continue to say that I don't think that's a good idea.
Oh,
Any other comments?
very well, we move along to the approval of minutes, January 12th.
I move to approve the minutes as written for January 12, the monthly board meetings. Thank you very much, Rita.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We move on to approval of bills.
Ready for me?
Yes, go ahead.
I'll go down on the unusuals. ADP is 2 payrolls. As you can move further down, Sid and Renee Feldman is a refund. Renee overpaid by $140 for each child. IAPD is our annual membership. Lemoy Hardware is high, but $404 of that is part of a grant through iParks, and we bought safety cones and ear mufflers for the guys when they drive the lawnmowers and use the chainsaw. They give you a list, and you can pick off the list, so you can't go out and buy like an IAD. There's not enough money, that kind of thing. Mike Merrill's a reimbursement, our annual website fee, which has been changed now. It's on our debit card, so you won't see that next year. Neopost stamps, Office Max, a variety of supplies for our STEAM workshop, which is going very well. It's the class we have every first Wednesday of the month when kids are out of school. Pioneer Press, 2 years of the Evanston Review. Quill, a lot of office supplies, mostly paper, binders, and file folders. Elizabeth Rangard's a refund. Ruben Sierra's a reimbursement. We took our portable sound system in to get repaired, and they wouldn't take a check, and he was in Niles, so he just charged it and brought it back, so he got reimbursed.
Good man.
That's basically it.
I move to accept the corporate monthly bill summaries on the February 9, 2017 sheet for the amount of $17,491.41.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Move on to petty cash.
Petty cash, we have a whole, one check written, and that was for the fire hydrant to flood the rink, City of Evanston.
Move to accept the petty cash monthly bill summary, February 7th, for the total amount of $200.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Very good. We move along to monthly reports.
Okay, I'll start with Natalie, if that's okay. She's performing, it's her last week in a performance. I can't remember the name of the play, but they're at Mudlarks.
Steel Magnolias.
Steel Magnolias, it's it.
Arc Theater.
I heard good things, but they're not filling the house, so,
Is she an actress, an actor?
yeah, oh yeah.
Oh,
You saw her in a few of the Shakespeare
oh, sure. Okay.
shows.
Yeah.
And it looks like really neat cabs there.
So in Natalie's report, classes are going well. She combined 2 Zumba classes into one, which is on Saturday mornings. Unfortunately, one of the improv classes, or the improv class, had to be canceled due to low enrollment. Garden Table Workshop Series, due to low enrollment, Green Edens has decided not to teach the workshops. She'll have updates on the programming for you in March. We're trying to work out something where we do something in March, May, July, and September with them. But the enrollment on that program was way down. She's also doing a community-wide read. She is, RPD will be hosting book discussion on March 20th here at the Community House. Natalie will be leading the discussion. She recently attended a orientation training session at the library. If anybody would like to participate, we got copies of the book upstairs. It's supposed to be a great book, kind of connected to the Black History Month. Rock and Rolls, Jason Brown from our Ridgeville Foundation is holding an event here on February 18th from 1 to 5. Believe it or not, it combines rock painting and soup recipes. That's why it's
Soup
called
recipe?
Soup Recipes, yes.
And the painting of rocks.
And painting rocks for a rock garden. That's why it's called Rock and Roll, so you have roll with your soup recipe. Anyways, he got a grant through Evanston Art Foundation.
Great.
They're holding it here. Clean Up Evanston. Ridgeville's partnering with the city of Evanston for cleanup. We'll be in Ridgeville Park and Elk Park on in April. I don't know the exact date. She'll have more details for you in March on that, but a lot of volunteers will be helping. STEAM workshops, as I mentioned earlier, are going great. They're at capacity for the remainder of the school year. Great group of kids and great instructor. Spring camp, summer staff, V, Wesley, and Brian will be back for spring camp, which is a great load off of everybody's mind because they do a great job. We have kids registered. We anticipate to have about 20 a day. She's also working as we speak on the summer staff. She's interviewing kids over the last 2 weekends and posting job notices and interviewing to fill the remaining positions. So things are going good in that regard.
Very good.
Question, Brian, is this Ridgeville Foundation like open to the public, or is it just
I'm sorry, what?
Ridgeville Foundation event on Saturday open to the public, or is it a
Yeah.
fundraiser,
Yeah.
or is it?
Yeah, you talking about the 1 to 5 on February 18th? Yeah, absolutely.
So everybody's invited?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm having trouble. I'm getting a lot of echo. You ready for me?
Please, Brian.
Okay. All right, so we got some fascinating CDBG news, and it's all tied to the new administration, so I'll try to make some sense out of it. In the past month, I've been in touch with Sarah Flax, City of Evanston, regarding the status of our Brummel Park CDBG project. There are several things the city is waiting on from the federal government that affect us. First, the federal 2017 budget must be passed. This is not done yet. Second, the city is waiting to hear how the threatened withholding of federal funds from sanctuary cities will affect Evanston. So that's another thing we have to wait and see. This puts Brummel Park project on hold, actually puts all CDB projects on hold until these complicated questions and issues can be resolved. Normally, we would sign a contract with the city for the project when the project funds were transferred from the federal government to the city. This may not happen for some time, if at all, so we're on, like I said, we're on hold. We'll follow CDBG guidelines and prepare like it's going to happen in the end of the summer, and Sarah Flax will keep us posted. So that's not good. That's not really good news. A lot of question marks. We have other grant news, although minor in comparison to Brummel Park Community Development Block Grant. We have 2 small grants for safety products. One you already heard about. That was bought the safety cones with, and one from iParks, from the American Risk Policy Consultants, who are part of their conglomerate. We'll buy first aid kits with those grants for all the parks and all the camps. These items were chosen from a pre-approved list per the grant. Ice rink. It's been hit or miss the past month, mostly due to warmer temperatures. We will keep trying until mid-February. As of today, we're going to be 45 for the next 5 days, or mid-40s. So we'll see what happens to the block of ice. Once the middle of the month hits, the days are longer, there's too much sun, it's not good. February 15th, usually the last day you would ever flood. I'll be out of town March 29th through April 3rd. I'll be attending my nephew's wedding.
Brian, can I ask a question about the
Sure.
ice rink?
Yeah,
Do you think you'll take it down then,
Yeah.
this month, within the next couple of weeks?
well, we'll check the weather.
Yeah.
If the weather's good enough and we don't have water underneath the block of ice,
Yeah.
we'll leave it up for as long as possible.
Oh, even into March? if it
No,
stays
no,
cold?
no.
All right.
As long as possible in February.
Okay.
And then we take the sides down and then you just watch that block of ice melt. And then we get rid of the tarp because it's history.
Thank you.
The liner, I'm sorry.
Brian, while we had consistent days of cold, how did we manage to keep the surface even for skating?
Water levels itself. And then we have when we bought the rink, we have this little bar contraption. It's like a Zamboni, but you walk it. You know, Zamboni you would drive and the water would bubble out. So we could flood it that way, or if we've got some really bad spots, they'll use the fire hose.
Okay.
You would connect the hose to the pipe mechanism and walk it behind you, and it bubbles out nice and even.
And how often did you investigate the rink?
Did I investigate?
Well,
I was there every morning. The rink, whenever it was cold enough, we put a coat of water on in the morning.
Okay, so every morning it received a coat,
When it was cold enough.
when it was cold enough.
Yeah,
And that's like 32.
yeah. Well, it's gotta be a little colder than 32 because the sun hits it and it's never gonna freeze. So if it was 28 degrees and gonna be 40, we're not freezing.
I don't own my own pair of skates. I should. I don't know why I bought my daughter a pair because she outgrew them in a year. And it is a lot of fun to skate. The one visit I had, I must say, the surface was very uneven.
Very bumpy.
Yeah, but it was strange. I mean, it was almost pockmarked.
Yeah. Well, that could, when it rains, it evaporates in different sections and then
That might have been
it's pretty level now.
Okay,
But it's gonna get 45 and it's gonna be hard to get back to code.
understood. Thank you, Brian. Jerry?
Okay. You should have found in your packets the usual reports, 4 of them, the appropriations ledger, the trial balance, and on the backside, the statement of revenue appropriations, and the balance sheet. On the appropriations ledger, just highlights there, we are at the point in the year where we should have used about 54% of our budget. It's saying in overall total, we're sitting at about 48%, which would make you think we're doing pretty good. But if you consider the fact that we've got in those numbers the $79,000 for the Bromo Park project that we've not spent yet, if we were to have fully spent that at this point, we would be sitting more at a utilization of about 58%. So that's a distorting line item in the overall computation. You know, fund by fund, we're looking real good on the corporate fund, right where we should be. On the recreation fund, without the Bromo Park factor, we look really good at 43%, but if we really spent the money for Bromo Park that's planned, we'd be sitting at 60%. You know, we
So
really
just-
shouldn't use the whole number, take half the number, kind of a number in the middle. We're kind of right where we should be on the recreation fund too, but the point is, we're not as good as it looks.
So were we to go on with the Brummel Park improvements, if the CDBG had come through, you're suggesting then it wouldn't look quite as good, or perhaps our performance is off regardless?
What I'm saying is our budget allows for that expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't spent that money.
We haven't.
Most of our expenses kind of happen mostly evenly throughout the year. Some of them happen all at once.
Mm-hmm.
For example, liability insurance is a great big bill we pay early on in the year. This project, when it happens, will be a big distorting event in the month that it happens. If it doesn't happen this year, we'll be way under budget on the appropriations side. but we've also got the offset that we wouldn't have received the income. So the net effect to a balance sheet perspective would be neutral. But from a comparison to the appropriations ordinance and our budget for appropriations, we'll look like we're way under budget.
Okay.
Okay. The problem is, to just jump straight to the summary line item of 43% is a little misleading because you've got to noodle out what's going on with that particular line item. It's a distorting line item. If you try to, completely back it out, adjust all the numbers, it would really show that we're probably sitting at around 54% utilization on all the other line items, which is about where we want to be.
Thank you.
We're in month 7?
This is, well, July, yeah, right.
Month 7.
Well, it's kind of like 6.5 months because of the way we do the computation. Because some of our bills, like the corporate bills, are a half-month computation. Our payroll is a full-month computation at this point. So the January bills, only reflect half of the January expenditures. All the things we paid after the 15th are in your February bills that you approved tonight that have not been posted yet.
The rest of February, March, and April will be low expenditure months for the parks and everything else.
Okay. Turning to the statement of revenue and appropriations, whereas the appropriations ledger says we're doing pretty good once you kind of understand what's going on with CDBG. Here it shows that we've actually spent close to $50,000 more than we've brought in revenue. If you go to the all funds total and go to revenue over appropriations, the leftmost column at the bottom, the bulk of that is coming from the $26,000 we've overspent over income on the recreation side, and about $12,000 on the liability insurance. Liability insurance is just because that expense gets front loaded in the year. We'll each month kind of keep getting revenue in the form of tax income that will balance that out over time. The same thing will probably happen over time in the recreation, because here's the point, timing-wise, we've talked about this a few meetings ago. We have not received any 2016 tax revenue yet. That won't start to hit us until the next couple months. So we're in that time of year where we're effectively drawing upon our reserves to maintain a positive cash balance in the bank.
Your real estate tax bill is due March 1st.
Right.
Just let you guys know.
Yeah, they just went out, but as of January 30th, there's none of that revenue showing up, but we've been expending it and living off of prior year tax revenue. I don't really have anything to add from the balance sheet. From the trial balance, if you go down to account C219, miscellaneous accounts payable, in the recreation column, we're carrying a balance there of about $833. At this time of year, what that essentially represents is the fact that we have paid the farms for last year's farmers market, and offset by the income that we've got, what's left over is our delivery income. So what I'd like to ask tonight is that someone give us a motion to take the $833 into income as delivery fees for the farmers.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Another accounting catch-up item, we've been carrying a $39.90 outstanding item for a couple years now. We've been going through a process to get rid of that thing. I'd like a motion tonight to take, because we've now done the certified mailing and had no response from the party doing the money's out, to take that $39.90 as income for a check reissue fee for us. If we were to reissue the check, we would charge the fee, it would zero out the amount owed, and we can zero that out and take it off the books.
So moved.
Where is that, Jerry, is that?
I don't have a report tonight, but it was on last month's outstandings report. We've been carrying it every month as an outstanding.
Got a motion.
And when I was doing the books, I remember, I keep forgetting to ask for that motion, so. To take $39.90 for AA Moly to income as a check reissue fee.
Got a motion, Mr. President?
All in favor?
Second. Oh, I didn't hear it. Thank you.
Oh, they went out of business, didn't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
The alternative is we keep carrying it for 10 years and then have to turn it over to the state of Illinois as unclaimed property. But by saying we're trying to reissue the check and taking it as income, we can just make that go off the books.
That's a lot of Benison's donuts. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's all I have on my report.
Thank you, Jerry. Moving on, we have capital improvement committee reports for two campuses, Leiter Park and the art studio rear building. Rob and I were working on Leiter Park. I have nothing to report.
Art studio, same, we haven't really moved forward since last meeting.
Very good.
Can I ask, Ann, do you know, did our architect get the thank you letter? from
We
us?
did, it
Good.
was very appreciative,
Good.
thank you.
Good.
That really made his day.
Well, it means a lot.
It
His
does,
assistance means
yeah.
a lot.
Well, he was
Very
very
good.
thrilled to get it.
Moving on, we have IAPD Code of Conduct. A little background on this. Over the past year and a half, the board had been exploring ways for working together more harmoniously, for creating a better dynamic, more productive dynamic for the district. We've made some progress in the form of a best practices manual, to which we've all agreed, that outlines a code of ethics. We have a code of conduct supplied us by the Illinois Association of Park Districts that rather closely, not exactly, but rather closely mirrors our code of ethics. Most of us have agreed to it. I would like to turn to it again tonight, mainly to inform any further discussion of board conduct, of the conduct of individual board members, both during meetings and before and after meetings. There are 23 specific points covered by the Code of Conduct. I could go through these. It would not make for entertaining reading. It's important reading for the commissioners, and for that reason, I'd just like to check in and see that I took an opportunity to read them this week. Ann, did you have a chance to peruse them?
Yes.
Okay. Pat, did you have a chance?
Yes.
Dan, did you have a chance?
Yes, and further, I keep a copy of it in my wallet to read it once in a while.
That's fine print. Okay. Very good. I went over it to get a sense of what's, I would say, permissible in more or less a legal sense, but also in the sense of generating a good board dynamic. And it pertains directly to the taping of our meetings. We have a audio recording that's posted on YouTube every month. It's just audio. There's a link to it through our website. Commissioner Coyne has seen fit to record our meetings month after month, first for YouTube, then for Facebook. We've received some complaints on this, so it's useful, I think, to consider our code of conduct as a reference to determine permissible behavior. At this point, I've reviewed each of the points myself. Looks like you have as well. And I think you'll agree that in many areas, board members' behavior is significantly constrained, which isn't to say that we have to speak a certain way or dress a certain way or act a certain way. It is to say that we do need to act honestly and openly, to grossly paraphrase some of the particulars here. I wasn't able to find anything in the wording to suggest Commissioner Coyne was violating any specific point in the Code of Conduct as regards to the recording of, the video recording of our meetings. Dan, as I understand it, you are recording these for the public interest.
Exactly.
And where can the public find them?
Do you want to take time now, or do you want to take time later in our board meeting? We've got on the agenda this
We do.
issue. So it's up to you. I can go either way.
No, I appreciate your indication of that, and to clarify, let us address it at that time. Going back to the Code of Conduct, again, to inform the discussion, are there any particular points anyone would like to raise on that vis-à-vis the recording of meetings?
I just think, we had discussed today, I think if we're recording, it should be, sort of something that we're all gonna agree on that we can do. I mean, I think he has every right to record. Like I said to him today, I think, it's distracting when you're sitting up in the front here and recording. So, I mean, I suggested putting it off to the side or away from the proceedings of the meeting, because I do think it's distracting. So that would be my comment.
Okay.
I appreciate that very much, and I concur with you 100%.
As we haven't any other particular points on the code of conduct, Dan, it doesn't appear to constrain that particular activity. Is there a reason you haven't signed the code of conduct yet?
Oh, sure, which is a different topic, but the actual procedure on signing, I understand that was a new, this year, first time request by a board member. I had never heard of us doing that before. If I'm correct, I've been here 4 years, that was the first time we actually passed around a sheet of paper talking about signing a non-binding code of conduct. So at that time, I just needed more time to reflect, because as I recall, when we passed, I think you and Ann had suggested we follow some best practices.
Best
I
practice.
don't think our board was all on the same page. I think that vote was a 4-1 instead of unanimous, but I could be wrong. Be glad to look at that again. So I suppose I would rather take a look at best practices and find out how our board feels about that. I'd like us to be unanimous about best practices for parks. I support it 100%. I'd like to start there, basically.
Certainly. It may be useful then, and for that reason I suggest we postpone this discussion to next month, to recognize that one indicated behavior for the board, and the best practices manual is also non-binding. It is best practice, but it isn't ordinance, is to wholly support the actions of the board once they are passed. So regardless of the ratio for or against any particular motion, it is our responsibility as board members to support that policy once it passes. And in that regard, the particular division of preference on any given motion isn't particularly relevant.
I think you're saying something in the code of conduct that once you pass something, that should then become a board policy, basically. Is that what you're saying, basically?
Well, once the board passes a policy, it is the board's policy, and we all have an obligation to own it equally.
Right.
Anyhow, if we can agree to postpone discussion of that particular point to later on, to next month.
And I just mentioned one thing,
Please.
we hadn't done the code of conduct because the board agreed to invest in the visit by Peter Murphy from IAPD. He came and spoke to us, and he recommended that the code of conduct would be, he saw there were some issues within the board. He recommended that the code of conduct would be a good thing to do and consider. So it really came from the president of the IAPD. That's why we began the conversations to deal with it and passed it 4-1.
Thank you. I overlooked that. That's a good point.
Do people want to take a look at this before next month
What I'm
again?
confused on is if we passed
We've-
it 4-1,
And I think Ron has.
that means the policy, the code of conduct is, or the best practice?
Code of conduct was meant as, again, a non-binding means to indicate we would uphold those points as individual board members. It wasn't meant to be policy. We have as policy, albeit non-binding in a legal sense, a code of ethics in the best practices manual that mirrors, albeit inexactly, the code of conduct.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
If I might suggest, then we move along to discuss signature cards at banks. New business. Jerry?
It's kind of been a lingering issue for a while that it's been my impression that we didn't necessarily have the most current signer information at least one of our bank relationships, specifically the one that I had in mind was US Bank, which used to be Charter One. when I came on as treasurer, we went around to some of the banks and got the signature cards updated, but we hadn't hit them all. It wasn't a pressing issue, but noticing that we've been carrying balances in our bank accounts above FDIC limits, and we've got an obligation to not do that and not maintain the safety of the funds, it seemed time that we needed to move money out of one of our bank accounts into one of our investment accounts. The question became, who has the authority to make that move of the money? So Brian and I made a trip over to US Bank to just kind of check on who was currently a signer and work on what we needed to do to move some money around. In doing that little exercise, we discovered we are far out of date in maintaining our signature cards over at that bank. It's a little
this
bit of
is
a
Chase
tricky
Bank?
situation.
Chase Bank?
No, this is at US Bank.
Okay.
It's a little tricky because the bank won't tell you who the signer is, and if you're not one of the signers, they won't answer your questions.
Let's hope they're alive, right?
So, neither Brian nor I were signers on the account, so they really wouldn't reveal anything to us. However, while they had it up on the screen, I could see over the person's shoulder, and the person, gave kind of a test question of, well, is Martha still one of the signers? Which was a reference to Martha Gaines, who's long gone. That's how out of date our signatures are over there.
She's alive, but not on the board.
Yes.
Right.
So, we need to clean that up. And they're...
Well, does Martha have to go and get her stuff?
Because thankfully, I was able to look over the shoulder and see Patrick's name is still on. So we got, Patrick is our ace in the hole here, that he still has some authority at the bank to get it done. So what the first step in the process is, they have to see minutes from the board authorizing who should be a signer. They need to see it in the form of a resolution. So what I would ask tonight is that we have a motion from the board for a resolution to amend our investment account at US Bank to have the president, vice president, parks director, and treasurer as signers, specifically Michael Drennan, Ann Cabot, Brian Wazinski, and myself.
So moved.
It would require that we all individually make a trip to the bank. Unlike our other banking relationships where they let us bring home the signature cards and get them signed here at a meeting, this bank requires each person individually make an appearance physically at the bank with your identification. But
Okay.
step one is we gotta go in with the, did you ever get a phone call from them? Remember, they're gonna call you and tell you the process? Okay.
And does it require that there's two signers or just one?
We didn't get into a discussion of that because, again, they would not have much detailed discussion with Brian or I until
We want
an
to.
authorized person was there.
Right, I would suggest.
And what I do know from banks is a lot of times they don't like, we might want to put the restriction, 2 signers required. From their standpoint, they don't allow for that in their procedures because they don't want the legal liability of if they blow it when they're reviewing checks and paying things. So it's kind of like, we can have that as a policy, but we can't necessarily have the expectation that the bank will enforce that policy. The burden is on us to watch our account and enforce that policy. We could ask and pursue that further when we go over for the signers, but while Brian and I were there, we couldn't get any traction to answers on anything because they would not talk to us, we're not signers.
What's the address of the bank so everybody knows where to go?
Well, the branch that we went to was the one on Howard Street, but they've
Oh,
also
right.
got, I think now they've got a location over at Chicago Avenue in Maine.
So all they have to do is just go in and talk to somebody?
Well, we
Well,
would
after
want
we
to
do
work with a
this.
specific banker.
You'll do
on
that.
it. Yeah, we'd get that. First thing, let's get the motion passed.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
All right.
And then we'll get that in minutes. When the minutes are approved next month, then we can approach the bank for, okay, now what do you need from us? And we'll go from there. So it's going to take a few months to make this.
Jerry, just a clarification, the threshold you were talking about on the bank, is that 150,000 and above?
250,000.
250,000, okay, thank you.
I mean, if we get that over to them, if you want to email us, I mean, we could do it this month.
Well, we can't do it until we have it officially recorded that the minutes are approved. They will only accept
Oh, I got
approved
you.
minutes.
And it's just the one bank, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I think, yeah, we're up to date and current at Chase, I know for a fact. We've done the certificates of deposits over time, so I know we're good on all of those. The only open question I still have is we've got one account at First Bank that's like a money market type account that we can check with, but because many of the people there are former State National people, so they know me from when I worked at the bank. They're usually pretty good at talking to me about stuff when I call, even if I'm not a signer, they'll help me. So I don't think, we'll follow up on that one, but the charter one is the clear, oops, we are falling behind, we need to clean that one up pretty quick. And that's really the only banking relationship we have where we still have room to add some more money at that bank and stay within the FDIC limits. So what we would be looking to do is move money from Chase to US Bank to even out where we're at. Beyond that, we would need to find another bank and open up another banking relationship. Alternatively, there's a way where we can buy indemnification bonds for double the amount of what we're over the FDIC limit on and be within the requirements of the law. But I'd rather not go down that road because it's just way more complicated. And we've always tried to maintain our banking relationships within the geographic boundaries of the district. So that's the reason why we have the banks we have.
So we now have then 4 signers on: president, vice president, parks director, and treasurer. What role then would you play in being a signee?
The main thing is that it would enable me to access the account to get statements.
Understood.
I mean, in theory, yeah, could I write checks and stuff too? Well, I'm a signer on everything else, but I don't go towards that function unless I have to fill in for somebody.
Understood.
Thank you, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks.
Very well, we move along to a discussion of videotaping of public board meetings. This was Pat's line item.
As I said last month, I was hoping to have the entire board here to talk about this. We postponed it last month because Ann wasn't here. Obviously, I'd like to have Rob here too, because I think, as a board, I'd like to have an opinion on it, basically the same as what we did on the Code of Conduct. We voted on it, and the 4 of us agreed that it was worthwhile to observe the Code of Conduct. And, I'd like the board to discuss the item again when we're all here so we can all weigh in on it. I've expressed my opinion that I think it is not a welcoming act when a number of our citizens have said, please do not videotape me. I don't want to be on your Facebook page. I don't want you to manipulate what's there, what's not there. And it is not a public record of our meeting. It's not really a public. While it's on social media, it's on, Commissioner Point's Facebook page, which really, in my opinion, and I'm not that sophisticated when it comes to social media, it's really not the public domain. It's really not the Park District. It's really not accessible to everybody in the Park District. And when somebody comes to a meeting and says, I don't want to be videotaped, to continue to do that and not to accept the wishes of a citizen is, to me, unwelcoming, and it isn't part of what the board should be about. And I think the board should make a statement that, from our perspective, it's not acceptable, and the ramifications are probably nothing other than the board agrees that, we don't support that. Now, if the board feels otherwise, and we do support it, well, that's another thing. But in my opinion, as I've expressed probably 4 in the last 5 months, is that it is not a gesture of, we are here to serve the common good. We're here to serve the public. And if somebody comes in and says, I do not want to be videotaped for one commissioner's benefit, or agenda, that person should say, okay, I will not do that because I respect you as a citizen. I'm here for the common good, not for my 300 Facebook followers. So that's my opinion on it. Again, I would prefer to have any type of vote on it when were all present.
Well, as you did know, and that was very well said, by the way, Patrick, thank you. Code of conduct, point number 14, commit to regular attendance of board meetings and be properly prepared to discuss points for deliberation. Thank you for upholding that. I'm sorry that we fall short on that on occasion. Sometimes it's unavoidable. For that reason, I think we can look forward to taking action next month.
Mr. President, I'd like to speak to this if I can. I understand that, if I understand you correctly, Commissioner McCourt, that you have concerns about the Facebook posting and the video recording. I would like to clarify a few things if I could, and also I'm very open to the idea of when we have a full board meeting, talking about any motion that you want to put forth. So far, there's no motion, so we're just discussing the topic.
Sounds good. We'll have Pat give a brief response then before moving on. Go ahead.
So what I'd like to speak to is what I heard Mr. McCourt speak to today, and that is a couple things. One, the last 5 months really, where this topic has come up, it's never been on our agenda. It's been part of a public comment and then a kind of a carefree, open discussion with the board. And I personally appreciate that it's finally on our agenda, and that gives us a framework from which we can discuss it rationally. So I appreciate that, Mr. President, having it, and Mr. McCourt having it on our agenda. As we go forward discussing this, I hope we can take a look at this, not only from a really a legal perspective, which we already have informally. We've gotten a legal opinion from our corporate attorney that the federal and state constitutions are pretty important, and those laws are pretty clear about freedom of speech. And anybody, any human being in the world can record on any kind of device, any public meeting. So it's an open meeting. So in that sense, we've gotten the legal clarification. I appreciate that. But we haven't had a chance to talk about it as a board. When I took my oath of office, I recall stating under oath that I would follow the Constitution, both the federal and the state, which I feel all of us need to follow that oath in our practices, which means allowing anyone to record with any device, any of our public meetings. That said, I would like to say that there's a bit of misunderstanding. When I grew up as a young boy in the 50s and 60s, we actually had film, and we actually had filming. There's no film in here, and there's no taping. Really what it is it's a digital tool that allows a public meeting like this, both the audio and the visual, to go out into the digital world for anybody to review it if they like. And with Facebook Live, that occurs real time, so it's called live streaming. So that means anybody in the world actually can watch a Ridgefield Park District board meeting as it's happening.
Right now.
Right now. And then after the meeting, when the person with their device finishes the Facebook live stream, they then have a choice to post it if they want to, and that goes to their Facebook page. At that point, again, anyone in the world, if it's a public, it's a public in the sense of Facebook, because you can distinguish your Facebook to be private, but mine's public. Anybody in the world can access that particular recording through Facebook and review it anytime until the digital world soaks it up and it destroys it, But it should last forever. What I've discovered is, over the last 6 months here in Evanston, doing the same thing at other open forum meetings at City Hall and at different candidate forums and at Northwestern protests against the Trump Muslim ban and just different open meetings. I've been Facebook Living and finding something fascinating. It's engaging more citizens and people around the world on what's happening in Evanston. And I think that's great news. For example, the Arab Student League invited me to come and listen to Arab students who are from the countries that our president has banned. And they wanted to tell the public their story. And so about 15 to 20 different Arab students got to speak publicly to about 1,000 people that gathered, some citizens like myself, but mostly Northwestern folks. I was able to Facebook Live that 2-hour event, over 12,000 views, shared over 100 times. Now to me, that is a form of a new age digital democracy that I support. Now I don't know if we'll get 12,000 views of a Ridgeville Park District Board meeting, but I have noticed in my service the last 4 years that we usually have 1 or 2 or 3 citizens. To me, that's not good enough. I'm glad you're here. But we have 30,000 in our district that we serve that pay taxes to our district. So I feel like Facebook Live is just one simple tool to open up these doors to not only those 30,000 constituents that pay for our district, but to anybody in the world. Just the other day, while I was doing this Facebook Live for our mayoral candidates at Northwestern, one of our Evanstonian citizens texted, because you can do that during the film, people who are watching it can write comments. And this person wrote from Europe, saying, Dan, thank you. I'm in Europe, I can't see this forum, but now I can see what's going on so I can be an informed voter come April 4th. So those are just small anecdotal experiences that I've had, but to me, it's actually a very exciting tool. Now, next month, if our full board is here, we can take a look at what Commissioner McCourt would like to discuss, whether it's a motion or discuss this further. I am very open to the idea and the discussion of exploring creative ways that our district actually could do this. It doesn't have to be my device. Anybody's phone could do it, or a camera that can hook up to Facebook. I don't know how that works, but at least the phone does through the internet. But I'm wondering if, just like the city council does, we could have a shelf somewhere that's not intrusive. And a phone could sit up there, sort of like mine is sitting up there on the speaker now. And just every meeting, part of our protocol is Facebook Live. It's not the official public record, that's Miss Rita's, our recorder. But it is a way, I think, to fully engage our larger constituency on what's going on. And I think that's good news.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you. We appreciate your expansion of that particular topic. We agreed to have, or we thought to have Pat provide perhaps a response. Pat?
Can I just make one comment too?
Of
I just
course,
thought
of
that,
course.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to get our meetings out to more people. I just think it would probably be preferable in my mind to have the Facebook feed on a Ridgeville Park District Facebook page. And so I think that would be the way we would broadcast that to our constituents. I mean, I think when it's on a private page, I don't think you're going to get as many hits, for one thing. And, you know, I think having kind of an official feed would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I agree, and I think what I object to is then the commentary that, and again, I haven't read it specifically, but other people have read it and have told me about it. The comments that are made by Commissioner Coyne on whatever's occurred that particular evening. So it's kind of a, you know, comments that aren't mentioned here, but are mentioned on the Facebook page. So, and they tend to, the ones that I've heard back from have been derogatory about Ridgeville Park District. So it's like, let's talk about that here as opposed to on his Facebook page, because we're really not talking about it. We're just, somebody's just seeing the comments and relating that basically.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to comment recently on Dan's Facebook page, and I was surprised too at the content, and I had to really sit and reflect, and it made me realize that there are different locations for coming to an agreement and understanding things, and Dan and I'm sure the rest of us, because this is a majority rules board, travel home with our own distinct views and may in fact maintain those views over time despite discussion or despite agreements made in the board that then pass on to policy. So in viewing it, I had to say to myself, well, this is how Dan feels about some things he's seen on the board in general. As I'm friends with Dan, I was able to comment. I can't say I agree. But it's just important to recognize that, at least for Ridgeville, for the sake of our representatives, we need to orient this discussion as to what happens here, what's discussed here, not what's discussed on an individual's Facebook page. That's not to say that it doesn't or wouldn't inform our opinion of this particular behavior. It certainly can. It's that solutions such as mounting it on Ridgeville Facebook page or finding an alternate path are indeed preferable. We don't have a full board, and we wanted to discuss this with Rob present. May I suggest we postpone this to next month?
Yeah, I would like to follow up with Commissioner McCourt's comments about alleged comments he hasn't read, to be more careful, if he would, in making claims like that if he doesn't have firsthand knowledge. I prefer that we speak in I statements and be well informed. Otherwise, it leads to rumors and misunderstanding. So just say that it would be helpful in our public discussions that we try to deal with facts that are real.
Well, somebody was reading it to me.
You didn't, sir.
But they were reading it, and I heard it, so I'm not going to look at your Facebook page, Dan, so
That's your business.
I've got other things to do.
Point taken, I hope.
If we might.
Thank
Could
you.
I just make one comment, because I've heard the number of people that in the Ridgeville Park District is 30,000, and it's not 30,000, it's about 20,000. So I've heard it 3 or 4 times, and I've been reluctant to correct you on it, but there's about 20,000 people in Ridgeville. If you just go to the census, check that out, and then...
Commissioner McCourt, thank you for that clarification. Are you counting the residents?
Counting the residents in the 2010 census.
Yeah, I don't know if you understand this, but the reality is our district is formed by the taxpayers in our district that are residents and business owners. And in fact, in our statute and our bylaws, it also includes all those who are employed and work in our district. And it's actually 30,000 plus.
Well, that's not the
Gentlemen,
residents of the park.
We appreciate the
20,000.
information. It isn't particularly
I know, but
germane
you
to
know,
topic.
when the information is wrong,
I
it should be corrected.
object. That's an opinion and that's not a fact.
And it isn't particularly germane in any
I know it isn't, but I'm just
sense
not
to
here.
the discussion. Thank you. I'd like to move along finally to discussing Black History Month. We've celebrated fine individuals in the past, including Ray Knox and Rick Marsh. We have, I think, an obligation to recognize and continue to celebrate this very important aspect of American life, the African diaspora, and to celebrate it in all its aspects. I have fallen short on finding a candidate. I pursued some homework this week. It didn't quite turn out. I wanted to find out if any of you had suggestions on an individual we might celebrate for Black History Month.
I could think of 100. I mean, you want us to talk about that between now and next meeting to invite someone? Is that your idea?
Well, we would be a little late, but we could certainly pursue that. I'm opening it up for discussion. My only other suggestion wouldn't be to point a particular individual, but to perhaps celebrate an institution. I had a chance to visit one today, Kurt's Cafe, that's doing tremendous work with at-risk youth. And it certainly seems a worthwhile candidate, though it's not an individual and isn't actually located in the district.
One idea, now that you mention it, is I would feel more comfortable having time to discern this carefully and give it good, due process. Because I can think honestly of 100 folks in our community that could easily be presented with, if you want, a recognition. Is that what you're thinking along the lines?
As we have in the past.
Okay, so in that case, I would ask the board to consider maybe inviting the new NAACP president, Dr. Reverend Michael Neighbors. He's pastor of Second Baptist, and I was very fortunate to be there at his official inauguration, and he spoke at the NAACP over at your place, the Union Church. And if it's all right with the board, maybe extend an invitation to have him come and speak to us about how, I don't know any topic we want, but perhaps how Ridgeville and our African American community or NAACP could collaborate this next year as a way to celebrate the depth of our rich culture.
That's a good suggestion, Dan. Thank you.
What's the name of him? Excuse me. Reverend Michael
Michael Neighbors,
N.
Nabors.
And he's the pastor at Second Baptist.
He is. And he's also the new president of NAACP Evanston chapter.
Okay, thanks.
Phenomenal speaker, phenomenal social justice person. He walks on water, practically.
You know, with that being said, I think that maybe we should insert into our schedule in January some sort of procedure for nominating someone. I feel like we're a little.
It should have been on the agenda last month, you're right.
So maybe so if there's any way we can put that in some notes somewhere that's on our January agenda.
That we pursue it in January. Good point. Patrick?
Fine.
Sounds good. Okay. Shall we then postpone the election of a candidate or the identification of a candidate for next month?
Well, my suggestion was to invite Reverend Neighbors as our celebration of Black History Month by recognizing our new president of the NAACP and hear from him at our board next month, if he's free.
I'd be all right with that.
Patrick?
It's okay with me?
I haven't met Reverend Neighbors. He was ordained in my church, so he's got to be.
Well, he was already ordained, but he was affirmed as the new president of NAACP.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification. Well,
No other reason.
that sounds, actually, in that case, would you be so kind as to invite him to come speak next month?
Thank you.
That'd be great. Any other new business?
Not so much new business, but I didn't comment. You got in your packets this month, courtesy of Brian from the office, the statement of receipts and disbursements. Last month you had a copy, but there was a page missing in the copies that were distributed then. This month you've got the missing page included. This is just our annual statement in a statutorily required format that we file and have on file at the district every year. So that's what that's all about, in case you were wondering why is that in your pile.
I was wondering about that, actually.
We used to be required to publish this in the paper every year in December. Now we just publish a notice saying it's available for inspection for anyone that comes in. And
Thank you.
It's filed by our attorney with Cook County.
I got one thing.
Yes, Frank?
Reba Park, the pods are gone. Inspected the court, it's in pretty good shape.
Okay.
There's a tire track in the dirt, but the spring will take care of that, or in the grass. There's one scratch. It's in pretty good shape. We lost nothing.
Thanks, Frank.
Good.
I'm glad we could help. Not hearing any other new business, we have citizen comments to consider. Yes, sir.
First of all, I'd like to say, I'm running for commissioner, and I did, as I was getting ready to get my stuff together, my campaign together, I did go to City Hall, to the Civic Center, and do some research about Ridgeville and how many citizens there were. And in fact, Dan, there are 20,000. And in fact, only people that live in the district are considered residents, and not people that live in the district, that work in the district. That is a fact. And you can call and find out, or you can come to my house tomorrow, I have it in writing. That is a fact. But what I really wanted to say was that about the taping, is that I would just like to say that there are several residents, I've been coming to these meetings regularly, as you know, for the past 2 years. There are several residents that have complained about the tapings, the movies, not just one. And there are negative comments made on there. People have read them to me also. And I would not look at your Facebook page. And you know what? That code of conduct, I was here the night that you were the only commissioner, Mr. Coyne, that did not sign it. You were the only one. And your reason was because there was a word in it that implied religion. It was not a big discussion about anything else. 4 other commissioners readily signed it. And it was just, you know, everybody else was willing to work together and everything else, and you were the only one that didn't sign it. And it's just, you know, to make a big deal about, well, I didn't really look into it, I didn't really study it, I can't let that go by because it's not true. I was here, I observed it, and that's not what happened. And I just think for the tape to go on and for that to go through and be said, it's not true. And, you know, for it to be on your Facebook, where most people aren't your Facebook friend, and most people that look at your Facebook probably aren't even in the Ridgeville, you know, community. And a lot of people don't come to these meetings because they don't feel welcome at these meetings. And some people don't come because they don't want to be paid. And they've let that be known. And you need to really look at that when you have this discussion. You really need to be aware of that and remember that, if it matters. And I like the idea of whatever you're going to do, it being on a digital page, that's where it should be, not on a personal page. You've got it audio, you've got it in writing. Hopefully people will be more welcome here. Why do you keep playing around with this crap with them? I know you don't answer questions, but I think you really need to think about this. Whose needs are being met here? I think it's an important thing to look at. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I would just like to reiterate that same position, which is basically what I've explained all along, is that the device doesn't belong to Ridgeville. The content of the device is being managed by one person for his own benefit, as far as I can tell. If the tape was done by Ridgeville and published by Ridgeville and managed by Ridgeville, that's a bit of a different story. And if it would draw more people in, fine. I don't know that, you know, I'm sure we're gonna get a lot more excitement in a city council meeting maybe, but as a means to begin to participate in the community, there should be a way for, you know, they can comment on what they see on a Ridgeville page versus have a one particular person do that for their own benefit. I reiterate and hope that will be taken into consideration.
Any other comments?
I have 2 comments. I didn't say you don't answer questions, but for the last one, I have suggested, you voted or you've decided who you're going to speak to, but I would have a suggestion, if you have not already spoken with him, of Bennett Johnson. He is native, well, he's been in Evanston for a long time, done a lot of really great things in Evanston and in the U.S. He's nationally known for several things. Amal Pastor Neighbors is a great person. He's only been in the Ridgeville district, I think, several months. And Bennett Johnson has probably, over his lifespan, done more in the Black community. So maybe he's someone you can consider. And then another thing, and this isn't on the agenda, but in the community, there's been conversation about the possibility of a skate park coming to Ridgeville. And so I would be interested to hear more about that at some point, whether you all put it in your newsletter or whatever. I think that's something that would be of interest to me and other families in the community, where that's going to go, how that
Thank you. Sir?
Sorry, I'm an ex-resident for comment on the Black History situation. With respect to the individual that Cicely mentioned, you also have a Big Ten university in throwing distance from here. I know because I'm an alum of Northwestern, got my master's degree from there. Evanston has a very large young adult and youth community, as well as a young professional community. I know because I'm one of them. If nothing else, there will be no shortage of 20 to 35-year-olds, college graduates. I'm currently a PhD candidate, and I'm in the military. I'm in the Coast Guard. College graduates, master's degree students, PhD candidates, military personnel, entrepreneurs in Evanston, young black men and women who would be more than happy to sit here in some chairs with a bunch of ETHS high school students and talk about not simply Black History Month, but what they do in their own personal lives to advance themselves, to work in the community. This doesn't have to be a one person getting an award type situation. So, and with today being the 9th of February, and it's the shortest month of the year, all due respect, ladies and gentlemen, clock's ticking. So I would recommend that you all truly consider that as an option. It'll be a lot less legwork, to be perfectly honest with you, I believe. A lot less buy-in on you all's part. The worst you all would have to do is vet the applications of the men and women who decide to do it and just see who you want to have show up. But you got a huge university that's here. You're in throwing distance from the city of Chicago. I'm one young Black professional in Evanston, and I sit on 3 boards in the city of Chicago, and I teach at 2 universities. I'm one person. There's no shortage of people here, so I would strongly recommend consider that as an option. It would also probably help increase the young youth and young adult population who, let's just be honest, imagine you're a 13-year-old, you spend every day of your life having someone you deem old talking to you. Be honest about it. Whereas if you get a 13-year-old and there's a 22-year-old or a 25-year-old talking to them, they might be a little more receptive to it. That doesn't mean it's better or worse. It just means imagine you're a 12-year-old or even a 16-year-old. So I would just recommend you keep that option open. Again, today's the 9th, clock's ticking, shortest month of the year. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
What's your name, by the way?
What's that?
Vincent Thomas.
Vincent Thompson?
Thomas.
Thomas.
Okay.
Not hearing additional citizen comments. Do we have a move to adjourn so as to move into executive session?
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.